Let the record reflect that we came back in session at 6:47. Kim, you were speaking?
Sure. So, with regards to, I had a question I asked because I paid close attention to the reconciliation of funds. And at the end of July, we had a balance in the coal severance account of $16,591 and a little bit of change. And then that changed in August to $94,000. We had a net change, a positive net change of $94,681.83. So my question was, where did the money come from? Okay, which is a very honest question. I'm just trying to understand. I asked to be walked through the budget revision that was on the agenda that evening regarding how we were taking $95,311 from the coal severance fund, putting it into the general fund to pay for the dirt removal from the ball fields on Spencer's Landing. Okay, so that's a legitimate question. That's what I asked for. I got an answer about an hour, just less than an hour before the meeting began, which the answer was, we took money back out of the street funds, put it back into the coal severance fund, and then from the coal severance fund, what we were approving that evening was that to go back to the street fund. So confusing to me, clear as mud. So that was my question, but I want to put something up on the overhead so everybody understands something else. I hope you can see it.
You need to enlarge it, I can.
Okay. When our terms first started, the beginning of 2021, we were sworn in, of course, in January. So in the first, I think this was in March, there was an ordinance that was passed by this council that was the process for the appointment and approval of council liaisons to the city of Vienna. The police department, fire department, public works, finance department, and the Vienna Senior Center. So in this, you can see that there's a procedure by which the liaison is to be nominated by the mayor and confirmed by the majority of council. That's an ordinance, meaning a law, okay? Meaning we're supposed to follow that ordinance. As soon as this was passed, and it was passed 5-1, there was one no vote, which is the same member tonight who's bringing this resolution forth. We never filled those liaison positions, ever, okay? So I find it a little confusing tonight that we're trying to have a resolution regarding how we cooperate with liaisons, but we don't even have liaisons. We do, I guess, but it's never followed the ordinance that we passed in March of 2021. So it probably is a good idea that Mr. Leach table this.
Kim, I disagree with you 100%. Okay? I will research this and I will show you in the minutes where every one of these liaison positions was voted on. Okay? The liaison positions are the most important job that a council member has. I have always felt and tried my best to put the most skilled person who brings certain talents to the job with a group of people that can do the best for the city of Vienna. That's why Mr. Bibby's with the fire department. That's why Mr. Azinger's with the police department. Okay? And I can tell you that some of the ones that turned out were not at all the way I would have done it, because I think some of the people that got appointed have absolutely no skills related to these departments at all. So I will find this and I will get that to you, okay?
I appreciate that because I've already been through the minutes. It doesn't exist, and I don't disagree that Mr. Bibby does a fine job for the fire department. Mr. Azinger does a fine job for the police department. And certainly if they are put forward in a proper manner in accordance with the ordinance, I would happily vote for that. But we still don't have a liaison to the senior center, okay? you know, and I assume that what you're saying, because Mr. Leach is the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee, that he's automatically the liaison, but that's not reflected in any minutes.
I'll get the information to
Great.
you, okay?
Okay, since we drilled down to the specifics of this, with respect to this coal severance, so Kim sent an email to our finance director at 1:46 on August 25th, which was a Thursday. We were having that meeting at 6 p.m. Walk me through this revision. It doesn't say where this, and then she starts asking these questions. Amy starts responding. She responds at 1:55. Kim responds again at 2:33. Amy responds again at 2:50. Kim responds again at 3:39. Amy responds again at 3:52. Kim responds again at 4:20. Amy responds again at 4:27, and then again at 5:08 p.m. Okay, notice an opportunity to be heard. Kim starts hammering Amy at 2 o'clock, demanding this information 3 hours before this council meeting. All right, how fair is that? I don't even know about this until Amy copied me on this email after 5 o'clock and said, I've done my best. All right, it's not fair. All right, if you want information from a department head about an item on the agenda at Thursday, you don't start doing it at 2 o'clock. All right, that's not fair. And I asked Kim. Kim said, oh, well, when I proposed this resolution, she says, this is targeted at me. I said, you're right, it is. I said, this isn't right. This isn't fair. I said, and if I had been copied on these emails from the beginning, I would have said, Kim, you're a little late asking for this information. You're going to give Amy a reasonable time to respond. And Kim's response, well, I run a business. I don't have time. I said, so you think you can crash into Amy's world at 2 o'clock? She has other responsibilities too. So I absolutely disregard and disrespect that response. So as a common courtesy to our department heads who have served these cities for decades, this is your first term as a council person, and to say I demand this information just offends me. That's simple. So that's the purpose, and that's why I want an opportunity to table this resolution, draft it in a way that substantively protects the interests of council members to be able to say, this is information that I'm entitled to, I want to understand, and I want to know before I make an informed decision. But it also protects our department heads to where they're not being manhandled or demanded, because they are not our employees. All right, and to say that I got a business too, well, so what?
Okay, so,
I'd like to
Okay, that's
respond to the
my-
personal
maybe, may
attacks.
not.
It's not a personal
Okay.
attack. It's
And
what
this
you
definitely is a
So-
personal attack.
we've had all the discussion that we're going to have. I'll call for the question on the vote on whether this is going to be tabled or not. If it passes, then we will table this to the next council meeting. If it doesn't pass, then we will continue the discussion. All those in favor of the motion to table the resolution requiring council liaison to be carbon copied on any email communications, please signify by raising your right hand. Anyone that doesn't want it tabled? The motion carries 6-1. This is tabled until the next meeting. Next item on our agenda this evening is a resolution adopting the conceptual plan for Spencer's Landing and the 12th Street Parks. This is a resolution adopting the conceptual plan for Spencer's Landing and 12th Street Parks. Be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it accepts the conceptual plans for Spencer's Landing and the parcel commonly referred to as the 12th Street property as designed and drafted by Councilperson Christopher Mancuso. The conceptual plan is to serve as a basis for the design of the future phase development and general layout of the park and recreational elements for the parks presently considered for the 12th Street and Spencer's Landing properties. These proposed designs are attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution adopting the conceptual plans for Spencer's Landing and 12th Street Parks.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution adopting the conceptual plans. Is there any discussion? And I'd like to start it. Okay? I have no issue with Spencer's Landing. Okay? We'll fine tune that thing. I think you've put all the pieces in there. And, you know, the restrooms, the shelters, all of the things. All right? I am not going to support the 12th Street plan at all. We have a meeting with the state of West Virginia on the 16th of this month. I want to wait until Brian Chapman from the state comes up here and looks at the site and then gives us some guidance for the 12th Street property. I know that we've talked about this, but the only thing that really is to be included in that 12th Street property is the kayak launch. All the rest of the fields and all of that, because we don't know what the state's going to ask us to do, and because we just got the property back at 12th Street, we don't have any kind of an idea whether we're going to reutilize that as a maintenance facility or we're going to redo it with activities or whatever. In my discussions with the department heads, everybody recognizes the fact that we need soccer fields. The problem with that is if you put soccer fields down there, there is no parking. There's no space left to do that. And so I think we need to go back to the table with the 12th Street piece of property and figure out what's the best usage of the available land that we have down there. I listened to Mr. Slusher this evening. I'm not a soccer player. I never have been. I play baseball. Okay. And I think that we have a real shortcoming in the city of Vienna when it comes to soccer fields. If you look at the facilities around our area, Williamstown's fantastic. They have got enough room up there that they can do all kinds of things. I think that we just need to take a step back until at least we figure out what Brian Chapman is saying to us on the 16th, because I certainly want to make sure that we get a plan forward and then sit down with the Vienna Rec people, sit down with some of the people that are involved in the leagues and have a discussion about, is there enough room? Because I agree with Mr. Slusher. Soccer is the most well-attended sport that we have. And, there was comments made about moving the dirt off the hill. One of the reasons why that project has moved along is because we don't have a baseball field big enough to play competitive baseball at the higher levels. We need a bigger stadium where we can actually play high school baseball. And we don't have that. And so that area up there, if it's ever leveled, which I hope it's going to start, then, we'll eventually probably have enough room to make a decent stadium or baseball field at any rate. There have been other areas that have been discussed as far as possible sites for soccer. If we could ever talk the landowners into selling that property, it would be fantastic, because then we could make a full-time soccer field as opposed to starting our soccer leagues out. And then when the football league starts, the summer practices, we have to move the whole program. Parents don't like that. They want a consistent thing that they know they're going to take their son or daughter to this field and have things ready to go. And so at any rate, I guess that I would like to split the 12th Street and the Spencer's Landing approval for these conceptual drawings apart. I'd like to vote on each one of them, because I think, like I say, 12th Street, there's just too many questions right now that we don't have a good plan for. And Chris, to be fair with you, you and I sat down and talked about this, and you were more than receptive for change. It wasn't like these were set in stone. That was, we can make changes to these things. We can. But we just don't have a clear path forward. The Spencer's Landing, I'd say you got a pretty good footprint right there. It'll have to be tweaked some, obviously, but anyway, that's my discussion on that part of it. So,
yeah, I have, I guess, a lot more of additional thoughts after hearing you speak. The intent for me to have this kind of put as a resolution before City Council is we've had Spencer's Landing and 12th Street properties for decades. And they're the same as they were 10 years ago. And I feel like it's time to make decisions so that we can move forward on these properties, so that the residents of Vienna can have some riverfront property. And it concerns me that we're trying to you want to split these two apart, because I know that 12th Street is one of the only two properties. Spencer's Landing and 12th Street are the two properties that the city owns that have riverfront access. And I think it's extremely important that we consider these to both be parks and open to the public. And I think that was my ultimate goal. I understand that, and I've had discussions with folks about the soccer fields and the sizes of soccer fields. I think that there are ways to accommodate that. I think there are ways to accommodate the parking. And whether or not ultimately those become soccer fields or a multi-purpose field and we find better locations for soccer fields, I think it's still really important that we consider that to be a recreational area. And so that's why I had Russ kind of draft this up to be a basis of design, because the intent is to recognize these as parks and recognize them as recreational areas, not to have a complete final design that is 100% happening based off of my drawings that I did on the weekends. I would love to see the city have permanent soccer fields. I grew up playing soccer in the city of Vienna and I loved it. But that hill that we've been digging away at since I played Pee Wee soccer. And it's still there. And so I would hate for us to lose this opportunity to provide the city with true recreational places, especially along the Ohio River when it's such a beautiful area, in the hopes that we might one day get some property sold to us from someone, or in the hopes that we might one day finally level out the mountain that we've been moving for decades. I understand that we have to talk with Brian Chapman, but that is just about the kayak launch, and that's such a small piece of the 12th Street property. And I think that there is very clear opportunity there that, it doesn't seem like it will be super difficult for us to get the approval for the kayak launch based on some of the sketches that we have. I really would like to keep these together. I know Spencer's Landing is a little bit more developed and there's been a lot more discussion about that. And I agree that that one is definitely more kind of concrete in its design because there's been so much discussion. But we've also spent $20,000 on a master plan from CEC, who has pointed out that 12th Street would be an ideal recreational facility and has proposed some of their own kind of concepts for what that recreation could look like. So I think that it's really important that we kind of consider both of these in this resolution to acknowledge that we do want them to be recreational facilities and provide access for the residents of Vienna to the Ohio River.
I have a question real quick. So does the making, having official concepts jeopardize the kayak grant?
No, the reason that Chris is proceeding with this is they're asking for cost estimates. Before you can get a cost estimate from someone, you need to know that, okay, we're going to put in, 100 yards of concrete, we're going to do lighting. And that's the basis for this, is to get numbers. Because you have to go and say, okay, this kayak launch, and I know that Chris attached some cost estimates for the launch itself with his descriptions. It's like $80,000, okay? And so that's good because we can tell them, look, we've got estimates for the actual launch, the decks for it, that kind of stuff is $80,000. And that was the reason for doing this, okay? But my comment to this is, we've only owned Spencer's Landing for 5 years. So 5 years. So it hasn't been decades, all right?
Okay.
And the second thing is, we've only gotten 12th Street back as of 2 weeks ago from where it was under contract and used by a different agency for 3 years. Chuck, I know that you're with Vienna Rec. Have you had any input in any of this master plan for building soccer fields down there and how it would work in with your programs and what have you?
On 12th Street?
Yes.
I had some conversations with Chris a couple of times after the first design came out.
And
we don't see it as an optimal place for soccer field, for what we need.
And so, as the director of the programs that is there, I mean, would you be supportive of the location and the layout of the fields to work your programs with?
Not at 12th Street, no.
Okay. All right, so maybe it could be redesigned and they could be shifted or whatever. I think the issue with 12th Street, when you start talking about soccer fields, is the program itself works much better when everybody's together. And you start splitting off. I know that you play Pee Wee football, I believe flag football, up at Greenmont Elementary School, but that's a different league than the football that we play, with pads and what have you. So I don't know. I'm not going to step into it. You run the programs. We need to make the facilities fit whatever it is that you have need for. And so that's my only comment about that. And I think that the consensus from all the things that I got was that people don't want any more sports programs at Spencer's Landing. They want it just like you talked about, recreation, green space, picnics and an amphitheater for programs and what have you, a walking trail, those kind of things. So I'm not suggesting that we take the soccer fields back to Spencer's Landing at all. I'm willing to go with your design, and then when we start, we'll figure out what'll fit and how much we can afford. Okay? But I just think that because 12th Street is so new and we don't have the instructions yet from whatever the state's requiring of us, that we need to just take a step back on that one and look at it a little longer.
I liked what Chris said about that the intent is to recognize these properties as parks and recreational areas. I feel like that is reflected in the resolution. And again, like you've given us concepts, but if further discussion ends up taking the soccer fields to a completely different location, not at Spencer's Landing, or because it doesn't mention soccer anywhere in this resolution. So this is merely just saying this is for park and recreational use. So then we still have plenty of time and available time to research and to get input from all the parties involved, and we can find the best possible location for soccer. Am I correct? Is that right?
Well, if you look at the conceptual drawings that he drew, which was what we're approving, I mean, there's a soccer field on every square foot.
Well, yeah, but again, it's my understanding that there's a lot of tweaking. Like, we're not saying, okay, we're have soccer down there, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have this. I felt that was kind of my hesitation at the last meeting, because I didn't want to be cornered into anything, and I didn't want to make the decision like right now as to what was happening, because I didn't feel like we were necessarily there yet. So if we're like committing to have soccer down there, that's different than saying these spaces are for recreational and park purposes, and we are working on a good plan and we'll take it as we go. You see, so I see the soccer fields there, but is it possible if we passed this, does that mean soccer fields are going to be there in some shape or form?
No, and
Okay.
that's why I talked with Russ about this and wanted to make sure that it was very clear that it's and he even put it in all caps in the resolution. This is the basis for the design of the future phased development, meaning it's going to be multiple phases, right? We're not going to have all of this next year. And as we kind of develop these properties for recreational use, things are going to change in 3 years and 5 years. And I didn't want to, nail us down to one specific thing. So, and I've had these conversations since I proposed this with the folks from the VRIA about the soccer fields. And sure, if the soccer fields don't make the most sense there, then that's fine. We can find a better location to suit their needs. But I think it's still really important that we keep that as a recreational area, whether we make that a multi-purpose field on 12th Street and it can be overflow for when we have larger competitions, or if we pick up flag football or frisbee golf or any of the other sports, that we know that we have a space for that on 12th Street.
So this kind of commits us to saying we are ready to start thinking about this. Like, we're starting to stir and get the creative juices going. We're not just passing it down the line, right? We're saying
Yeah.
we're going to do something, and it's going to evolve as we go.
Yeah, and I think my hope, at least, is to have this kind of as a starting point, so that we can continue to actually move forward on these sites. I would hate for us to sit here and come back next fall and say, oh, we haven't done anything with these properties, because we haven't done anything with these properties for years. And I understand that we just got the 12th Street property back from a lease, but I know the city has also owned 12th Street property for a while.
Long time.
Yeah. And so I just want to make sure that we don't end up losing the opportunity to make these recreational facilities. And, you know, for some reason, someone really wants to come and lease that property again, and we do that. And then when we're stuck without, you know, land on the Ohio River that I think people have been crying for through all of the surveys and through all of the master planning and through many of the conversations I've had with folks about the opportunity to have riverfront access and it to be public to our community, I think is a really important aspect of this resolution.
Okay.
I have a chat. Oh, Tom's got something good.
Go ahead. I'll be very brief. I just don't think we're at the point where we should approve the 12th Street. I think they should be separated. You know, you haven't solved all the permits and everything with the state, and I definitely think they ought to be separated.
Okay. Jim?
Oh, just this. My challenge to Chris, where are we putting the boat ramp? Okay. I mean, I think the city is absolutely in the, you know, looking forward. I don't think anyone disputes that we want, you know, that we're happy we got the 12th Street property back and it's available to develop for our citizens who have an interest in this. Where do we put it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think there are opportunities in the city to have a boat ramp that the city could utilize and create and make public. And again, the kayak launch is such a small piece, and the permitting for that is such a small aspect. And it's basically already approved. We've gotten pre-approval on that before, so it's not like they're going to swipe that permit from us and not let us build a kayak launch after all of the work that we've done. So I don't think I don't have any worries about that as part of the 12th Street property. But yeah, a boat dock is definitely important, and I think it would be awesome to have. And I think that there are opportunities with our city and along the waterfront to do that. But
I just think that has to be included in any conceptual discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, that's all I got.
I just want to say, I don't see the purpose in splitting the baby tonight. I mean, all we're saying is, hey, we're just laying down stake that this is going to be used for recreation and parks. And I think for the community who has wanted for a long time to have that 12th Street access, that we're actually committing to something and saying this is what we're going to do. And, you know, when we talk about Spencer's Landing, I mean, we bought that property in 2014, so it's been far longer than 5 years. And it's not been developed yet. So this is a good plan, and so I don't see why we should delay it any further. I think we just go with what's presented tonight.
So we have a resolution here. And I would like to see it voted on separately. And I don't know if that takes a motion to do that
I think
or,
it's going to take a motion in a second. The way the resolution is presented,
okay,
it's presented as one unit.
okay,
And to consider them separately, I think it needs a motion.
okay.
A motion?
I'd like to entertain a motion, Tom, to split Spencer's Landing and 12th Street into two separate votes,
I couldn't express it any better. So moved.
okay? And I'll second it because I want to see it done and we'll vote on the thing. I like the recreation. I think if we designate 12th Street as recreation only, I think that's fantastic. Okay?
Well, can we amend it to say conceptual design?
Stipulating recreation only?
That is for recreation.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Future design.
You already have a motion and
Oh,
a
quick,
second.
Russ.
That's fine. Okay?
Consider splitting it.
Okay, so then is there any further discussion on splitting these two? And I'll call for the question. All those in favor of splitting 12th Street and Spencer's Landing for the vote, please signify by raising your right hand.
That's a deal, I'll go with that.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, it passes 4-3, so we'll vote on them separately. All right? All those in favor of the conceptual plan for Spencer's Landing, please signify by raising your right hand.
Spencer's Landing.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Maybe we could, now can I move to
Now you can
amend?
move to amend the 12th Street property to be, from here on out to be considered.
Chris, do you have language we might amend it to just make it a little more broad, designate it to make sure we're keeping it? And
As a recreation.
Yeah, I would just say this, the conceptual plan to serve as a basis of design for, you know, it says it in there for the purpose of the future phase development and general layout of the park and recreational elements for these parks.
I like the language. I don't like your picture. If you put soccer fields on that picture and we adopt that picture, from here on out, everybody's going to talk soccer fields. If you leave it recreation, whether or not it's a boat ramp or whatever, and I'm all for it. We don't want to get rid of that piece of property. That's a good piece of property, okay? But I do not want it pigeonholed into that design until we figure out if that'll work, okay?
so if we said,
So do we just need to take off the last sentence? These proposed designs are attached here to and incorporated by reference herein. If we take that sentence off of the 12th Street property, it doesn't refer to any concept. Is that right?
Is that good for you?
Specifics.
I'd just say, the 12th Street, make a motion to amend the resolution that the 12th Street property is reserved for future recreational use approved by council.
You want to say that one more time?
Is
I
that,
don't know that I can.
okay, is that,
That the 12th Street property is reserved for future recreational use. And just go with it.
Okay. All right. We're going to keep it. It's going to be made into recreation. All right.
so do I need to make a motion to adopt that amendment? Or did I already?
Yes, you'll have to make a motion.
Okay, so I move to adopt the language as modified regarding 12th Street property.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt the amended language designating 12th Street as a recreational area, and that it will stay in the property of the city of Vienna. Okay? All right? Okay? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment to designate 12th Street as a recreational area, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. We move on. Jackson Pool update, please.
yes. Okay. Omni and Martin Aquatic are working together on a coordinated site plan. We should have the rendering in around a week. They are going to be providing us options, pricing, and layouts. We will receive the fee proposal for the core borings tomorrow morning. So we'll probably end up, I don't know if we need to call a special meeting to address that or how we want to do that, but we can discuss that and see how we want to proceed. That is my official update. I will address the questions that Ms. Powell brought up earlier. I still think it's interesting that people don't know what's happening. What that says to me is you don't believe me when I give an update. I cannot give you the day-to-day, hey, I texted so-and-so, hey, I called so-and-so, hey, I had this meeting, hey, I have this email. That's not productive, and it's not completed. You can trust or not, is kind of where I stand. There's nothing going on behind the scenes. You want to know who's on the design team? I believe we've said it before. It's me and Tim Roberts and Steve Black. That's the design team. And we talk to each other. If we if we have an update for you, we will give you an update. And that's what I do at each council. Every single council meeting, check the agenda. Even in my absence, I gave an update to be read. Every single council since we decided to take on Jackson Pool, this public has received a complete update. If people don't know, they're not listening and they're not trying to find out. I do have people contact me directly and I appreciate it. If you have a question, you have my number, you have my email. We've talked before. Ask me a question. It doesn't have to be a mystery, okay? And just because you don't know what's happening in between meetings doesn't mean something secret is happening. And I get it. I get that people make things up and that they will assume things, and I can't do a doggone thing about it because I'm only concerned about facts. I'm only concerned about being productive. I'm only concerned about trying to get this thing built by the end of May next year. And so any of this other stuff that happens that I deem unimportant, I'm not giving time to because it slows down the process. And I'm determined to get it done. So if you want it done, get on board. That's how I'm feeling. And you can tell the public that. You can tell all your friends, you can tell everybody on Facebook, everybody can share that. Please. I want people on board. We will get there if silly stuff doesn't get in the way. Okay? The ramp, great, good idea. The ramp is something that has been talked about, and they are giving us options on that. So you will see that. There's an option for temporary. There's an option for a ramp built in the pool. There's an option even for adding additional pool space outside of the existing pool for a ramp. We have options, and none of that has been decided yet. We are determined to have a pool that is very accessible to anybody. Found out that because of the size of our pool, ADA requires that we have at least 2 primary entrance points that are ADA. So that either means a ramp and a lift, or 2 lifts, or 2 ramps, or whatever it is. There's got to be at least 2. And that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Has to happen.
You asked about the Dan Marshall thing. Mayor, if you want to address that, that was a meeting that you had set up. And he did meet with us. It wasn't a council thing. That was something that at the very beginning of all of this, if you want to call it rookie stuff, maybe. I'm ambitious. And sometimes maybe I said, hey, we're going to have this at council. And then I find out it doesn't necessarily need to be at council because I don't know if Dan didn't want to be here before council or what the situation was, but we reported on that meeting. We reported on it. So again, no secrets. I am still very excited about this process. This is the unglamorous part of it, and things are moving ahead much faster than I think anybody would have thought they would have. And again, please tell people to contact me. My personal cell phone and my email address are on the city website. I'm not hard to find.
In response to the comment about Dan Marshall, Mr. Marshall is a very experienced lawyer in dealing with bond issues. And so we've gotten multiple options that we can do once we figure out how much money's involved. I mean, I'm 98% positive that the funding issue will not hold us back for a moment. It just depends on which way council chooses to go in order to fund this project. You can't ask to fund it till you know how much. It's, you got to do one or the other. So once your conceptual drawings are in and they get approval on the design, and then it's, the numbers are there, then we'll lay down the bricks and say, okay, how do you want to do this? I thank you for clearing that thing up about the pool committee. I am not on the pool committee. I'm not. I trust Mrs. Elam. She's got it. All right. So she doesn't, if she needs me, she'll call me. But I am not sticking my nose in that thing. So anyway, that's fine. All right.
That's all I got.
All right. Any questions on the update? Okay. Then we'll move on to the last item on our agenda this evening. And I'd like to give you the background on this before we actually vote on this. In the very near future, Hope Gas is going to do an incredible gas upgrade in the city of Vienna. There is going to be miles of gas line replaced. They're pulling all the steel lines out and putting in plastic lines. Recently, Dominion Energy was bought out by Hope Gas. So that's the name. It's Hope/Dominion, but it's back to the old Hope Gas that we all grew up with. And so the other day, the Hope Gas representative came. They're looking for a staging area. They're going to have so much pipe and so much equipment that they need somewhere to store it while they do this project in Vienna. That's all it is. And they've asked for a temporary storage agreement for a landing area. The concrete area at the industrial side of Johns Manville provides more than enough space for what they need. And so what they've offered us is to lease 22,700 square foot of the industrial side of Johns Manville just to put their piping and their equipment in while they do this job. They would like to lease that 22,700 square foot for a year and possibly two. And they're willing to pay almost $23,000 just to use the land to store their pipe. Russ has drafted this document that's here. I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon with the representative of Hope Gas to show him the changes that Russ made in it. He put some liability things in it that, we're not responsible for the pipe and all the things that protect us legally. They have to name us as an additionally insured and just things to protect the city. But the industrial side over next to where the carbon filters are has a very nice flat area. That's where Chemours staged when they built the filters. And so they can put all their equipment and all that stuff in that area. They'll be out of the way. We'll still have the majority of the concrete area there. The fire department's using the upper section of it for a training area to teach their firemen how to drive fire trucks. That's why you see all the cones down there. And so allowing Hope Gas to use that section will simply make their job easier because their equipment and all their materials will be within the city limits. And from the size of this project, whatever we can do to make this thing go faster, we ought to be on board. You've seen the layout of Grand Central Avenue where the state road has come in and peeled back the edges of the road. That's simply so when they repave it that they'll be able to bond right up to the edge of the asphalt. All right. That's exactly what that is they're going to pave from 28th Street to Rosemar Road. And that's what that issue is. But when the gas company comes, that's going to be a whole nother issue because it's several areas in the city. It's a big project. Okay. So I hope you all have had a chance to read the resolution, but that's the background on it. They simply want to use a section of Johns Manville for a staging area for their equipment and their materials. Did I say it right?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a couple things. The original agreement was for a temporary easement agreement. They gave, or their proposal was one of the general easement agreement forms that the gas company typically uses with most everybody, and most people sign off on them. And for the city, that it's a temporary easement agreement, but it's still a conveyance of property. It would require an ordinance. It would require 2 readings of council, and it left a lot of terms unspoken. I can't recommend going and just using the general form because of where the proposed area is for storage. I mean, it's still, it's on the industrial side of the Johns Manville property, but I also recognize that there are people that live there, and that we do our best to keep people out of the property, but I wanted something that was a little more clear as far as protecting the city. So I will point out that I drafted the resolution to express council's intent. The intent of council is to allow the mayor to enter into an agreement with Hope Gas to allow it to store equipment and materials on a 22,700 square feet portion of the industrial side of the Johns Manville property, and to authorize the mayor's designee the authority to negotiate the final terms of the said agreement and to execute any documents necessary to accomplish the same. And I put that language in there specifically because I haven't had an opportunity to review all of the terms of the proposal that I've drafted with Hope Gas. They may want to make some changes. I didn't want to have to come back to council to get council's approval for something that in spirit council agrees. It's a 2-year agreement. It's an option to renew after the first year. The sum is $23,000, as I understand it, for both years. Is that?
No, per year.
I'm sorry, 23, and that was one of the things that I wasn't clear on. So $23,000 per year. It has an option to renew at the end of the first year. It'll automatically renew unless, or that's my intent, is that it'll automatically renew unless, somebody says, no, we don't want it or we don't need it anymore. But I didn't want council to later get a copy of an agreement that didn't track word for word with what I've proposed to council. So I've tried to draft the resolution to say this is generally what the agreement will look like. The mayor has the authority to make changes, but they can't be material changes. We can't move it from the Johns Manville industrial side to we're going to put it in the green space down by the park. So, and I look at material changes as those things that are generally the length of time, the option, what the property is going to be used for, and the location. I've put other details in here about insurance and so forth that I'm going to ask for when we talk about the agreement. But I don't think those things are necessarily material. But like I said, I just didn't want somebody to come back and bring an agreement to council. It doesn't track word for word with what you have. But I more or less put the temporary storage agreement that I've drafted in there as a basis for design. We'll fill out the details if we need to change them. But my recommendation is that we don't just do a blanket temporary construction or storage easement with Hope Gas. I have concerns with different levels of liability that could trigger. The fact that it's not clear about who's insuring what, access, and so on and so forth. And I wanted those to be a little more detailed than what was initially presented to me. So if you have any questions, I'll certainly try to answer them as best I can.
Well, now that you've done all that, why don't you just read the resolution?
I've read half of it.
I know.
Resolution adopting a temporary storage agreement be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that it is the intent of council to allow the mayor to enter into an agreement with Hope Gas doing business as Dominion Energy, West Virginia, to allow it to store equipment and materials on a 22,700 square foot portion of the industrial side of the Johns Manville property, and authorize the mayor or his designee the authority to negotiate the final terms of the said agreement and to execute any documents necessary to accomplish the same. Council hereby adopts the attached temporary storage agreement or any successor agreement that serves the same purpose. The mayor's designee is expressly authorized to enter into and execute said agreement or successor and to negotiate or make any changes as are necessary to finalize the agreement, so long as the changes are not material. Material changes are those that do not reflect the final intent of council.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the resolution adopting a temporary storage agreement.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adopt a resolution adopting a temporary storage agreement. Is there any further discussion? Mr. John?
If somebody came along and wanted to buy it from us, then we couldn't sell that portion of it.
We would just negotiate with them. All they want someplace to stick their pipe.
You could, if somebody came along and offered us a big chunk of change for the industrial side of the Manville property, we could sell it. It would just be subject to this agreement. And, and once the agreement ends, when I say subject, they're going to have to take it knowing that for the next year or 2 years, these pipes and bulldozers and what have you might be stored.
I think it's a good idea to rent. I was just curious.
No. And we talked about that. And we do have other locations that we could move them if we had to.
We're good.
and 12th Street's not one of them. All right?
It was $1 a foot a year, that's not
It
bad.
is, yeah. Well, anyway, it is per square foot, Tom. They do have a number. But I mean, I think it's a good deal. And besides
Well, I
that,
do too.
it'll help us.
It's a good idea.
Any further discussion?
I have a comment. I think it's good that we're getting these lines fixed and, replaced. And it's my understanding that there are 3 main lines that run right down the center of town where the trees are. And that is of big concern. It's going to be of huge concern to every resident of Vienna. There's already a considerable amount of angst just about the trim that's happened for the paving. And so my question is, can the gas company come and do a presentation at council, 15 minutes or something, to let the public know what to expect in the next 2 years? Because I hate for people to get a misunderstanding that the trees are, going to be taken out once they see the trucks and the pipes and all that stuff. I think that's going to be a very big concern for a lot of residents, and it would just be better to be forthright and transparent from the beginning and manage the expectations of the public.
We can ask. Okay? I mean, they have a right-of-way, which we have no jurisdiction over. And my understanding is some of that's going to be boring, which means they won't disturb the surface. So some of that, depending on where they're at, it may not be as bad as what it could be. But yes, we can definitely ask that.
Well, I mean, I think that's important because, you explained everything tonight. You left that out. And so that's what I'm trying to say. It's important that we communicate that with the public, and whether the gas company will oblige us and actually come, which I think that they will, okay? They want to be a good partner here. But if they're not able to, that we make a statement with for the public and make sure that everybody understands what's going to happen there.
Okay?
Yeah, I have a couple. I want to follow up on that, and then I have a couple of questions as well. I do think it's, important that we share what's going on and when we can kind of expect this to start, and if there's going to be traffic delays or anything like that in association with this project. Because I know that you've mentioned that it's a really big project, and especially if it's going to be taking a few years, it sounds like, to complete, I think we should definitely have some kind of a conversation just to make sure everyone is aware of what's going on and we don't start getting any kind of extra ideas of what may or may not be happening on the roads. And so I think that's a great idea, Cam. I would love to see that happen too. I have 2 quick questions. Are we at any risk with using the John Mansville site with the fact that we're still kind of abating some of the previous hazards and stuff that were there?
No.
It shouldn't be, because all of the abatement that we've dealt with has been on the south side of the property. Everything that we have on the industrial side, that if you look at the pictures of it, that entire area is covered in 5 feet of concrete. I don't think that's an issue at this point.
Okay, and then, I guess my other question with that is there like some clear designated area? I know we kind of have it outlined as like the industrial side, but just for curiosity's sake and just to kind of better understand where we might expect them to locate stuff, is there actually like a delineated area there?
They have an area that they marked, which is the concrete pad beside where the carbon filters are.
Okay.
All right. So that, they want 22,700 square feet. So that's part of what they've asked for. Mm-hmm. We met with them the other day and showed them the areas that we have. We're going to pick out the most accessible and easiest to get them in and out.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And it's going to be on concrete. There won't be anything on the grass because we're not going to fool with that. Okay.
Sure.
It's a storage area. It's a lay down area. They're going to, haul pipe out of there, put it in the ground, and come back and get a fresh piece.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So, and I know, Jim, for Chris's question, the report that we got from Tom, that particular side of Manville is not a risk area, or everything in
Right,
there.
well, we do have one, there's one section on that concrete areas. I understand where they're going. But 2 things. First, to Tom's point, it will be 2 one-year agreements, not a 2-year agreement. So if something developed, then we're not obligated to a second year. So, yeah, so we got actually just this week, I think just yesterday, got an update. Downstream Strategy, our licensed remediation specialist, has submitted a modification to our VRP and with deadlines of our risk assessment, remedial action work plan, and remedial action completion report to be completed within the 4th quarter as far as the risk assessment, and then the completion report within 90 days. So that's within the next 3 to 4 months. And the other thing with respect to the abatement, you know, that all the abatement that we're required to do that I'm aware of is done. So the rest will be in environmental controls like we did on the Riverside parcel. As far as, you know, you designate this is an area we have to work with, just like we talked about many times about how you would approach any disturbance of areas that are designated as being engineering controls. Yeah, so I agree with Tom that, you know, I would not be comfortable saying let's commit to 2 years. Obviously, it's an important project to the city. I agree with Kim in terms of getting that information out to the public to what to expect, because I do think it's going to be a pretty big disruption. And I think some trees are at serious risk. So I agree with that. But anyway, so that's the update on the production side. And I think is one other thing. Can we put the money to the cost of remedial action?
Well, Manville's generating it, so I would think that would be the.
Yeah, I mean, I think that helped us defer a little bit of our costs.
Yeah.
I think we're still generally are within budget, not time, as far as what we thought this was going to cost. But if the property's generating the money, I think we ought to use it to defer costs to get it ready to sell.
Will that come in as a budget revision kind of thing then?
Yeah,
Is
it
that-
has to go somewhere. I mean, but at any
Just go
rate,
general fund.
these guys are ready to pay.
And
Okay, and you know, well, we don't have any of the details, Chris, yet as his time schedule.
Yeah.
But I am sure that once we get started with this, they'll give us a timeline. They'll tell what section. There are going to be 3 major sections in town. Okay, and so when they tell us the schedule, yes, we want to get it out there. Okay, the trees are very important. That's our look. You know, so. All right.
And just to put Jim's mind at ease, well, to the extent that a lawyer's mind can ever be put at ease, paragraph 7 says, said agreement shall remain in place for 1 year from the execution date. This agreement automatically renews for an additional year unless either party gives 30 days written notice. The city is not obligated to renew this agreement and may elect not to do so for any reason.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor of the temporary storage agreement, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Are there any council comments?
I have a council comment. When we first took office, there was a resolution that passed. I didn't sign on to this resolution, but it was the top 10 best practices for newly elected officials. And I think we've kind of broken a lot of those 10 best practices. Tonight, the amount of personal attacks, personal attacks should never happen, period, dot, the end, okay, in public meeting. I was personally attacked for quite some time by Mr. Leach unfairly, and then not being allowed to respond. And then unfortunately, Mrs. Powell, in my opinion, was attacked. Decorum is very important, and we did not show any tonight. And it's, I'm very disappointed in that. And I think I would hope that we can do better. And I would hope that the next time that council members want to attack each other, that can be stopped, Mayor.
So do you want to sign the agreement?
What's the point in signing the
No,
agreement?
I'm just asking, Kim. We'll move on. Anybody else comment?
Just a quick response. If you considered a personal attack that I recounted what you did in seeking to obtain information from a department head in an unfair way, I'm sorry you feel that way. I think that it was based on what you did. So, anyways, that's all I got on that. My other comment is.
Any other comments this evening?
I got one. I'm not done.
Okay.
I wasn't done either before the mic was taken away from me.
Oh, good.
That's your interpretation of what happened, certainly not supported by, the emails that I could produce. But regardless, there should not be personal attacks. And, once again, that's your interpretation, something that you weren't even
It
involved
absolutely
in.
is. Tammy, I really like your drawing. I think it's obvious you spent a lot of time on this and thought, and I think there's things that when we're talking about what 12th Street's going to look like, I think this is a positive contribution, and I didn't get a chance to read this, but I spent quite a bit of time looking at your drawing, so thank you very much for that.
Any other comments?
Yeah, just a quick comment to follow up on that. I've really appreciated the people that have reached out and had conversations with me about Spencer's Landing and 12th Street. It's encouraging to have residents of Vienna get excited about, the growth and development of our community. That's a big reason why I ran to kind of fill this position, was to help the city move forward and get other residents involved. So thank you for reaching out. Thank you for taking the time to draw up stuff and have conversations with me and the rest of council as well. I'm sure everyone here appreciates when residents reach out and try to have meaningful contributions to what we're doing in our community. It's really great. So thank you.
Meeting adjourned.